what are you looking for? Are you looking to do blacksmithing, bladesmithing, tool making, etc.? Form and function dictate the kind of steel you're looking for. So the biggest battle in scrap metal is, what do you have? What is your item? Well, let's take a look at something. So I was hobnobbing around and I found files. Good old files. These could be any number of steels, but they are carbon steel because they need to cut other metals. So, you'd imagine you could make a knife out of that, or you could cut a piece off and make the edge of an adze for digging in the ground and digging ditches, because you want to have a tougher edge, and in period you want to have a nice soft back to the rest of it because it's easier to produce that kind of steel. Ball bearings, a little trickier to work with, but boy, they do work. So how do you know what kind of steel you got? Well, there's things like the spark test, acid etching. Both of those are easily looked up online, but spark test is what kind of sparks do the steel throw when put against a grinder. In this case, this is going to throw a lot of hot spark, a lot of white sparks. That's going to be a carbon steel. Now, do you know if it's a plain carbon steel? Something that's simple, something that you can work with a blowtorch and a couple of fire bricks and like water or canola oil. Well, that can get a little trickier. Now, fun thing is, if you can find something older, you're more likely to find a plain steel. Which brings me to a popular topic, the leaf spring. I got lots of these in my shop, as you can see. They're from my early days of scavenging, or very recently pulled off my pull trailer. So these are probably from the 1960s. And they're likely to be 5160 spring steel. Now, I say likely to because the more modern your steels get, the more you're going to see what's called an alloy steel, which is going to be do what they're intended to do with less carbon and less production value, potentially. I've run into a few of these. Another kind of spring. It's a coil spring. These are awesome for making punches, everybody. Really, really awesome. Get older ones if you can find them. Like, where's my old one? Here we go. Here's some nice old ones. These are probably 5160. I found a pair of springs at a car yard. They were $3 a piece. So, hey, that's a lot of material for $3. Me and a friend went to forge them, and they were the most god-awful thing I've ever forged. They were very hard, even at high heats, which, hey, for starting smiths is no good. And they didn't harden, but they were hard to work with. We eventually figured out there was some kind of crazy alloy steel for a fairly new front end of a car. They're just not something you want to work with, especially starting out. So, there's that. Oh boy, I got a long list. So you'd be amazed at the kind of things you can find and what you can do with them. This is an old chisel, some kind of old metalworker chisel. My guess is by the sparking, it's probably 01 or something similar. Not a hard metal to work with, but there's some little things you need to know about it, but you can work with it. This is an air hammer chisel. Now you might think, oh, that'd be really cool. Well, I'm going to regrind this and use it for a chisel, but I'm not going to make a knife or anything out of it. Air hardening steels have more requirements. Now these are things you can look up. Now there's no guarantee this is an air hardening steel, but it's very, very, very likely. S7 and S5, which are designation for that kind of thing, much harder to hammer. They harden in the air. You can crack them on the anvil by hitting them too cold, actually. And they do all kind of other things that, once you know what you're doing, you can work with them. But they're not a good starter steel, and I feel like for part of this, for a lot of you, scrapyard hunting is going to be great for starting work. Although I've seen some really amazing advanced stuff done out of scrapyard steel. I just saw an incredible knife made out of railroad spikes that had a piece of Damascus forge welded down and a whole face chiseled on the back, and it was really, really attractive. And speaking of railroad spikes, do not steal these from the railroad, please. These were given to me. I don't know where they got them. I don't want to ask sometimes.
They're $1 a piece on eBay. Very easy to get.
That's true.
Just make sure that you get the ones that say HC, not MC.
Yes. Yeah,
HC is high carbon. MC means it's a decorated piece.
That's right. And now the HCs are higher carbon, definitely. They're like 40, 45, or 0.45 or something. I looked it up. So they'll hold a bit of an edge. Not as good as like a 1095 piece of 1095.
Yeah, they definitely hold an edge. So
They do. Oh, I've put some nice edges on some of these.
Yeah, me too.
But those are a great thing to start working with to get a good shape, to get a good edge on it. But it'll never stay sharp.
All right. That's Francois, my apprentice. He's holding the camera for me. We've been going over a lot of scrap steel. So here's another fun one you might be thinking of. Bandsaw blades. Well, these I got from a friend who works in an industrial thing. What you want to look out for is bimetal blades will have a soft back and a hard edge. So it's mostly not something you're going to want to do with. But
one question that just came up, are the spikes actually marked high carbon? By the way, go back to the railroad guide.
They will have a little mark. The little here or there or somewhere, they'll have a little mark.
Usually right on the head is stamped HC or MC.
Right under the neck. So here's an HC. Hopefully you can see it.
Exactly. That's where you'll find
it. That's it. Yeah, so they'll be marked. You'll find them. Believe me, you'll find them. They're out there.
And on eBay, they are listed as high carbon. You'll see the ones that are listed that way.
Oh, yeah.
I buy them like 12 at a time.
Oh, yeah.
$12 and some shipping.
Where is it? Oh, these things, these parts of the track apparently are fairly high carbon. These are like a clip. And they apparently make a pretty good knife. I hear lots of great stories, and this is a great thing to talk with other smiths is, hey, what have you used before that's turned out to be good for X, Y, or Z?
It's a railroad anchor, someone just said.
Anchor. Yeah, I've seen people make good knives out of these. So I just ended up with that recently, so I'm going to give it a whirl. But yeah, these, now if you're good at forge welding, you already know, you can forge weld these. You can make Damascus out of them. The older books say they were L6. And you know what? Way back, they were. Nowadays, they're often some kind of, I don't know, steel. That's the biggest problem is when you go into working with a steel, you don't know what's going to be in it. You really don't know. And so here's a good one. Farrier's rasp. Hey, everybody loves a good Farrier's rasp. You can make really cool knives, or you can do, this is going to be welded into an axe head. So the one problem is you have to spark test them. You have to spark test them a little deep because there are ones that are case hardened now out on the thing that are mild steel with carbon introduced on the top layer to keep them somewhat hard and sharp. And I didn't know about that, and I haven't found one yet. But somebody warned me that yes, they do. And then I checked around. I have a relative who's a large animal vet, and some of the brands are in fact mild steel with a case hardened outside, which is great for their function, but not so great if you're trying to make a knife out of it. Unless you want to case harden it, and I don't know that that's a good idea. I've never seen a case hardened knife work. I really haven't. So let's go down I wrote down a long list here. Oh, yes, so.
Thank you, Jasmine.
Oh, old screwdrivers. If they're dull and whatnot, then they might be high carbon steel. If they're shiny, just don't bother. If they got some kind of shiny coat or they're shiny, just forget it. This was at the end of my list, but I'm going to put this right here. Zinc. Please be careful. Please don't put things with zinc in your forge. If you think a find you have has zinc on it, throw it in vinegar for 24 hours. It strips the zinc off. If you inhale zinc, it will make you very sick. My teacher in the SCA inhaled zinc a long time ago, and it really, really did a number on him. It can kill you. It can give you brain damage. Please be careful. Zinc is shiny. Zinc is times noticeable, but it's okay in vinegar to make sure there's not a zinc plating on it.
Do you have anything that would be zinc coated, just to show everyone?
Yeah. Let's walk outside the shop. You know the big piece of steel out there, Francois? You know the big sheet?
Yeah. This.
Yeah, I was saving that. Yeah, the big sheet right.
Oh
here.
yeah.
I was saving that up.
This.
That is zinc plated.
It's like a ducting or something.
Yeah. You'd be amazed. Bolts, nuts, and bolts are usually zinc coated. So, but like a coating like this, you see, it's got this kind of a funny color to it. It's in a funny.
It's not a uniform color.
It's like a weird patina. That's zinc.
Almost
100%.
like Galvi.
Yeah. Well, Galvi. Yeah. Galvanization is zinc. That's what you want to avoid, like the plague, or strip it off real good. Because Master Brock threw a bunch of nuts, bolts, and whatnot to heat them up, to reshape them, and then he had to relearn how to talk. So let's not do that. I like it. Oh, here's one. Old iron pipe. You can find this all over the place. If you have a friend who's a plumber or works in the gas, you can get you some of this, and you can make really cool stuff with it. Or use it for, I actually use it for big punches. You can see where it's a little deformed. I'll set an item, and I have a punch to make that punch like you would use your Pritchell hole or whatnot. It's a giant Pritchell hole. At least, short. Get something bigger and better as I go. All right. Old wrenches are a maybe. I've had some that hardened, some that didn't for knives. But you can make great tools like hold fast out of them. Rebar. Yes, rebar is hardenable. No, rebar is not hardenable. Parts of it can be. Rebar is a question mark. Don't expect anything out of rebar. But tool making, it's actually pretty nice. You can make a great hold fast like you saw Master Brandier use. Not hard to produce. Saw blades. Okay. See this saw blade? This is probably carbon steel. Why? If you go here, there's not any kind of edge weld. Like there'll be a thing welded on. On modern saw blades, there'll be a carbide welded on here. The body's mild steel or some kind of alloy steel that will not harden and is no use to you. This one, well, depending on the age of it, might be L6, it might be an M series. I don't know. But half the fun is finding out, right? So you can hop in and do that. Let's see, what other sort of horrible things I have? I love junk steel. Pair of old shears. We're going to see how good these are. I straightened them out, and I'm actually going to make like a big folding knife just to humor myself before I do something with the other blade. And I don't know how well or what these will harden in. I'm going to try to harden them in a heavy oil first, and if they don't harden, I'll try them in a light oil. If they don't harden either, I'm going to have a really big question to ask myself about how good the steel is. Okay. Yes, I know I talk fast. I apologize. Modern drill bits. A lot of modern stuff is also made out of M series, especially drill bits and stuff that's going to take a lot of heat. Don't bother with M series. It's tough. The heat treat's kind of advanced, and you need to be able to keep oxygen out of the heat treat. And even with that, you'd have to wrap it with foil or something, even with the heat treat kiln. There's some things. Look for older stuff. Baling tines. Baling tines off of a hay machine turns out is like 1090. I didn't know that, but apparently that's a thing. I picked it up off of a farrier. Like I said, talk amongst yourselves always at Smiths. Everybody knows something. And everybody knows something that nobody else has bumped into because they have run into the most unique problem. So let's see. Old leaf springs. The other thing I want to talk about with leaf springs is cracking. And I just had an apprentice in. I call him apprentice. He's a son of a friend of mine who came in and has been learning from me. The student. He brought leaf springs from his farm. And there were a lot of cracks we found as we were forging them down. It was a good chance to practice getting a knife shape and putting a tang in, but we had to cut away half the tang because we had a crack that just kept going. You will have all kind of a beating in these, or not. Sometimes you luck out and find a nice clean leaf spring. So these are things you have to watch out for. Sometimes you can find cracks in them. Sometimes you won't find it till you're halfway done. Cleaning them up and beveling them. Francois, you've seen that.
I've done that.
That made me sad. So we've talked about leaf springs, old and new. Now, it's not just 5160 either. There's 92, 9250, 9240. It's there's another one out there that's hardenable. It's just the heat treat's a little different. So once again, you have to look for spark test, and then when you're heat treating, either you have to guess in the kiln or guess in your forge. Watch for you basically have to watch for when you get your transition from across the magnetic line. You get what's it called? Decoalization and decoalization. Gosh, the words are escaping me now. Thank you. Anyways, you basically have to watch for it to do the dance to where it becomes hardenable, and you never know. You might have to do it a few times. So let's talk about a fun favorite find of mine. A couple of things that I have found at the scrapyard, or at your local car yard, actually. The old tire iron. The older the better. If it's painted, it might actually be carbon steel. These have to undergo a lot of stress. And I always wondered if they were anything, so I hardened one into a javelin, and, well, it's pretty hard. Like, they're tough, they're good steel, they're probably, I'm going to guess 1075, something in there. They're tough, they're flexible. I mean, you use these to take the nuts off your tires. They can't just be mild steel where they can bend and fail. Nice. They have to have some toughness and spring to them.
I stand on them when I break torque.
That's right. Yeah, no, I've stood on these to get torque off. So yeah, no, you can make some cool stuff out of these, and you can usually get them for $1 or $2 out of go to a junk car yard and find a whole bunch.
We have a question. With the leaf spring cracks, can you fold weld them to reduce those imperfections?
Oh, they're already kind of bad in there. And hey, if you're gonna, if you can weld that leaf spring, cool. 5160 has a reputation for not being the easiest thing to weld. I've had it not weld on me when I thought it was gonna weld. You get chromium carbides can pop up if your atmosphere is not right. Jamie can correct me on that later because he knows more than me about forge welding. But that's my understanding. I've seen it done. It can be done. There are little things you can do to make it easier on yourself, but even then, I don't know that I would trust a crack.
You usually scrap the knives when it happens.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could forge weld it out, but I'm not sure, and I don't know what the car. If you're, yeah, try it, and if it works, it works. But I don't trust them when I get a crack, especially a big crack. Little crack, maybe grind it out. Maybe you can work your way around it. But like, if it's a big crack, you might have to give up. Sad to say. It's just the nature of using a recycled material. And if, like I said, if you can get them to forge weld up, more power to you. Like, cool. No, go for it. Let's see, where did I leave off on my monster list? Well, let's look at some other things I got here. This is some Pilo stuff that ended up in my shop because people like to just give me things. Crowbars. Same thing as tire iron. You can make a knife out of this. And a real old crowbar, I mean, this one's pretty old, and I paid a couple bucks for it. I mean, it's a working crowbar, so I can just use it as such. But if you're really dead set on making a knife and you got one from the junkyard or something, well, okay. Have a little fun. Hey, my glove. Awesome. These were dropped off to me. These are probably some kind of horrendous alloy steel. These are milling bits, big milling bits. And you might think you could make something out of them, and yeah, maybe you could. I don't know if you're going to be able to harden it unless you have the right equipment. Like I was saying earlier, some things seem like they'd be great, but as modern industry has progressed, stuff becomes less harvestable by the common worker, average Joe. To a point. If you're looking to have some fun, keep an eye out for these boys. These bolts, some of these have a certain amount of carbon content. I've never completely determined how, but a little spark test and try hardening it. Just like railroad spikes, some of these end up having a higher carbon content than you think, especially if there's something that has to take a beating, right? So you can make something. You can make tools or punches out of this. Mild steel punches will work. They'll deform over time, or you can case harden them, which is introducing carbon for those who don't know what case hardening is. And that case hardening is its own little thing, you know. Car axles. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about.
Wait. Go back. Tell us how you case harden.
Oh well, you need case. Well, the way I learned to do it, I got a mix, and you heat the steel up. You put it on. You bring it back at the heat. And then you quench it. Basically, you're trying to get it to absorb. I've heard you can pack them in like a box of charcoal. That one I've heard. I haven't done a lot of case hardening. I have other friends who have done a lot of it. Where is the case hardening? I don't know where I put that. I'm going to be doing a bunch of case hardening stuff for some tooling coming up.
Good, so you can make a video and show us later.
Oh, I'm gonna, yeah, no, I'm gonna, I got a forge press over here, and I'm gonna be case hardening some of that, some of my tool heads for that, and I've got a butcher tool, Smith and Magician that I made myself, and I'm gonna make the dies out of mild steel and then case harden those, and I'll videotape all of that.
Excellent.
Yeah, the way I've seen it is the stuff I have a case hardening mix, and it's a carbon that can absorb down into the outer layers of the steel. So you have to have it ground to shape already, is my understanding. Ground polished everything. You get it hot enough for the stuff to stick on, and then you get it all the way hot to quenching temperature, and you quench it, and it hardens up the outside of it.
Those videos will be attached to your Facebook page, is that correct?
Yes.
Benjamin Tanuki Williams Facebook page.
Yeah, I will attach those to Facebook, and I'll get those up once I do them. Which, I don't know, I just got to go out and get some mild steel and make the dies that I want coming up. Okay, so talking about mild steel. So here's the first thing. If you have any friends in an industry, which I lucked out and did, I got some sheet steel for people who want to armor. I got some sheet steel drops. This is stainless, and I got mild, and this was, I have a friend who worked for a company that made steel piping. And he knew what kind of steel they were because he's a welder, and he knows what he's working on. And when they were getting rid of them, they sell them as scrap for pennies. So this is a great way to get some starter steel. And you know, you're not going to get what you want precisely, but it's a great way to practice starting just hammering, even if it's some 20 gauge or something. Get used to hammering, get used to shaping and forming, and that's, Christoph can tell you way more about this than me on armoring, but that's how I've gotten some of the practice in on armoring that I've done. Now, for blacksmithing, on the other hand, I lucked out. There's a place up here that makes parts for tractor trailers and the like, but you can go digging around in scrap yards and all over the place. Mild steel's everywhere. Thank you. This thing kind of slides forward. And I have, and you can get in here and I'll just point. Okay. How are we on time?
You have about 20 minutes.
Oh, perfect. I got plenty of time. So, that wagon wheel looking piece is supposed to be wrought iron. I'm going to acid test it later. A friend of mine's uncle had found it deep in a not even a junkyard, but like a place that had a lot of antiques. So sometimes you'll find, now the rest of this, all this straight steel, is actually stuff that was sheared off of big pieces of plate at a manufacturing place, right?
They're a little trapezoid, but
that doesn't matter. It's great for starting. And same with the angle iron; those were cut offs from another friend's job. This is all mild steel, and I've got like 2 pieces of wrought iron. That pole, you can't tell the difference. That piece of round bar, right next to all those pieces of square bar, that big piece of round, is a piece of wrought iron. And I picked that up at a blacksmith meet, but you can find them everywhere. You can find them. The trickiest part about figuring out wrought iron is figuring out that it is wrought iron and not just a piece of mild steel. Because until you've either acid etched it or there's other ways to test it, it sparks very differently. That's a whole adventure. Oh, here we go. Francois, can you see those square bars down there with the holes in them? So those were given to me from a friend off of his farm. That's another thing. If you've got friends that are farmers, check with them and see if they've got scrap piles. You'd be amazed what you'll find.
Like the pile cable.
Oh, well, let's get to the pile and cable. That was my next stop. It was the same farm, same friend. And this is a great way to get stuff. Is I was helping said friend clear a field, and we found braided cable. This is towing cable off of his granddad's tractor. There was about 30 feet of it. His granddad had tried to pull a stump, and it snapped, and they left it there in the ground. Well, now I have it. And I've just cut it to length with an abrasive cutter. Those, once you get good at forge welding, or if you want to get good at forge welding, braided cable, and you can make that into knives, and that's carbon steel. Anywhere from like 1060 to 1095, depending on the grade of steel. Just check for a plastic core. I've heard some of them have plastic cores. You don't want that. That's going to ruin your weld. Yeah, I really don't recommend that. You can take them apart and clean them. There's all kind of ways to get flux down in them. But these are, for an intermediate smith, these are great fun. Once you get used to forge welding these, you can forge weld most stuff because it's like trying to hammer mush. Like, they'll be mushy, and then you'll feel that weld set, and it'll slowly get nicer and nicer. And you'll know when it's set, because the hammer feel changes. I can talk about welding these.
So the question is can those cables be galvanized?
Yes, that's the other thing. Be careful. Sometimes they are. I've heard of them being galvanized. I've never seen one. It's not a bad idea to have a big Lowe's bucket of vinegar that you just throw stuff in overnight. It also pulls the rust off a bit, but it'll attack any galving. But yeah, no, that's exactly how rusty that is and whatnot. Exactly why you might not know that there's galvanization. So yeah, no, definitely be careful with that. Throw stuff in a bucket. Throw some vinegar in.
And the cleaner the metal, the cleaner the weld, right? So like cleaning it will help a lot, right? Okay.
Oh yeah, no, get all the loose shit, get everything out of the way.
Degreasing.
Degreaser. Oh yeah, hit it with some degreaser. Something like a penetrant, PV Blaster, WD-40. I know guys that have done that. You can do that and do a flux soak. There's 3 or 4 ways to get the flux down into those cables too. That's a whole little section. Honestly, it's great stuff.
Another video.
I have seen guys turn these are chainsaw blades that were given to me by I think the same guy who pulled the cable out of this thing. He had a bunch of old chainsaw blades, and you can turn these into Damascus. It's not easy. You can get a lot of imperfections and voids if you don't go about it right. But if you're feeling ambitious, it's the way to go. You'll get something fun out of that. Let's see, what other scrap and fun do I have? Because it's all over the shop. Oh, fun story. Okay, I got some pieces of innocuous looking, and this is where having a friend who another jackhammer bit. Big jackhammer bit.
That one's S7.
That's S7. I had a friend up in Maine who made a whole. He found a giant jackhammer bit and he forged out an entire Zweihander. He's the son of another metalsmith, and he had some nice tools to work from. He couldn't harden it though. So deep down in here, underneath all this cable, I have just these little cutoffs, and they're very innocuous, right? Well, this is where spark testing comes in. This sparks is high carbon steel. And the only reason I would have known that is the guy that gave me these said that the guy he got them from, and he literally had like 30 Lowe's buckets of these buggers or something. They're all cutoffs from some sort of other metalworking tool. Like these were meant, the rest of this was cut off was sheared for making another tool. I said, okay, I believe you. I don't know if I trust your source because people, maybe just trying to get rid of the steel, maybe not. Well, yeah, no, these are 1080. These are 1080 steel, 100%. Like I went through the exact heat treat formula using the kiln, and if they're not 1080, they're mighty close. 1080, 1084. They harden really well. They make a nice knife. You can easily forge that into the bit for an axe. Oh boy, and adds anything that a chisel. There's a great video I saw where a guy made the entire back out of mild steel, wrought iron, and then this much of it was the actual tip of the chisel. And that's the old way of doing it, and makes a nice chisel. And you know what? If you saw this in a scrapyard, you might not think it. There's probably some sort of portable grinders and whatnot. Not going to say exactly what because I don't know. You could bring out with you to spark them. I don't know if a portable line grinder will spark the same way because I've never tested it as like a grinding wheel or belt but there's a chance of it, honestly. I'll have to test that actually, but you can get out there and test little pieces, or you can just grab a few and try to see if the guy will sell them to you as mild steel, or if they're just getting rid of them, even better. Give them a test. In worst case, a piece like this of mild steel, well, you could turn part of this piece of mild steel into a hinge.
Would file testing in a scrapyard be useful? Using a file?
Oh, maybe not. It depends if the steel's hardened.
What about Rockwell's files?
Same thing. If it's hardened, if the steel is already hard, yes, that'll be great. And then the only thing you got to worry about is case hardening. But if it's unhardened high carbon steel, this stuff isn't hardened. It's just been sheared. So this never went through a heat treat. This was cut off of something that was going to get heat treated. You'd never know because the file's not going to cut all that different. This was probably annealed before they cut it to make cutting easy. So it's as soft as it's going to be. Well, until it was cut, and that creates some stress. But yeah, it's hard to tell sometimes. I used to go out with a file. And yeah, sometimes you'll catch. Usually if things are hardened, they're already a tool, if that makes sense. That's not always the case, but once again, now here's the fun of scrapyard digging. It's a scavenger hunt. It's fun. Get in there, look for some stuff. Who knows what you're gonna find? I have found some cool pieces down there. One time I went to the scrapyard, I found actually stuff for doing pewter casting, like whole aluminum set of casting dies and stuff. It's a scavenger hunt and it's fun. Let's see, what else we got floating around here? Oh, this thing. So, this is an innocuous looking bar. At one point, it was less innocuous looking. The other two parts of it are in my tooling drawers. Here we go. So here's the top of it. You know what this is?
Giant tent stake.
That's a giant tent stake. Turns out they harden pretty good, actually. They're probably, I'm gonna guess there's some kind of, I'm guessing 1080 steel based on what I remember from when I first did this. And somewhere around here, is the punch I made out of the other end. I cut the other end off, and I made one of my drift punches out of it. So, the old tent stakes, some of them are hardenable. I haven't tested all of them in the world. I think it would vary by, who made them. But now that's another thing. Who made it will change the value. That's the other part of the scrapyard. You never know what you get until you got it. I think this was actually like a roller off of a machine at one of the industrial places here. I get those shear offs for the mild steel. My contact would occasionally just drop off. Hey, this is a part from the machine. And lawnmower blades. That just popped in my head. I remember one of the first things I ever tried. Once again, you never know. I tested a whole stack of them recently that I had forgotten I owned from 15 years ago. 2 of them tested with throwing good sparks, and all the other ones were terrible. They were all mild steel, probably case hardened at the edge, or not even. I mean, low quality lawnmower blade won't hold up as much as high quality lawnmower blade. Or they were some kind of alloy to just make them tougher, so when you hit a rock, it doesn't screw everything up. But still, I'm trying to think. That's the problem. This is not going to be an exhaustive list by any stretch of the imagination. There are so many tools, items, etc. out there in the world being used that when somebody's done with them, you can come back and practice your craft. It's tongs. You can make tongs out of all kind of fun stuff. I mean, oh boy, let's see.
There's a question earlier that I didn't get to. Can you use motorcycle chains?
Yeah. You totally can. I don't know if I use them for the edge, but for the center, like if you do a double, you do a core on a laminated edge. Yeah, no, you totally can.
I saw a knife someone forge welded that was just a chain going back and forth.
Yeah. Oh, you totally can use motorcycle chain. It's just getting the forge welds to stick well. Oh boy, I mean, there are people that this is their whole bread and butter beloved thing, is just going out and finding something new to make stuff out of. That old stuff, scrap. I love it. It's I do work with steel that I buy that is a known steel for certain items that I know have to be a certain way. But at the same time, it's so much fun, and just why wouldn't you give it a shot if you got some time to take some scrap and see what you can get out of it? Car axles. So these are both cut-offs from pieces of cut-off car axle. Car axle's hardenable. Not as hardenable, for a knife, but for tools, they're awesome. They're generally 4140, 4130, somewhere in there. These are 4140, and I just happen to know that. And then I got a big old, hey, you want to make your own hammers? You don't even have to do a whole lot of harden work on them. 4130. I mean, look at this. This is part of a car axle. This is the cutoff. And I know people make hammers out of them all day. If you've got a hammer that's got too many chips and is too beat up, you can recycle that into a punch. Like, let's say you got an old ball peen. Let's say this old ball peen's real screwed up, right? I don't know. It's not. I'm rehandling this one. This is just for the sake of argument. You could forge a punch out of the ball or something, cut and clean off the end, and rehandle it, and then you've got a handled punch, and those are fun. Those are great. I've got a handled cutter right here that you could easily produce out of an old hammer, and you can find old hammerheads for 50 cents, $1, or just thrown away. People throw these away, and you can turn them into a tool that will aid your craft. I mean, I could make this into a square punch with a taper, and you can put a big hole in it, or you can make it into a little thin punch, or a cutter, or any number of things. Horse nips. And so this is a fun one that I found all over the place. Horse nips. So this is...
Just so you know, you have 5 minutes.
Okay, yeah, no, I'll wrap it up in a moment. Thank you. So, horse nips. That was...
I knew he would talk the whole time.
Me,
it's amazing.
So come on now.
No comment.
So, this is actually my first set of blade tongs. Right here. This is a pair of horse nips. I think I got them for $5. Once they're past a certain point, people get rid of them. You can repurpose it. I cut a hole in it, and this is how I held some of my early knives when I was making them out of files. This hobby or this passion doesn't have to be expensive, and you can have a grand time recycling, and you can have I still see people fall in love with stuff made out of something else, and it's super fun craft. And there's guys out there doing it. I don't know everything there's out there, but I love hearing about it. So if people are like, "Hey, I found this and it works," it'll be fun. We'll make something. I don't know. Is there anything else? Like, I'm trying to think. You never know what you can make until you made it, right?
That's about.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've covered most of the stuff that we didn't give to somebody else. You know, like I gave some of the stuff to some pieces and bits and bits, but yeah, in the end, the big secret is form. Form and function will tell you roughly what the steel is going to do, and then go from there.
The internet is a great resource for it.
Yeah, that's a big one. Go. There are old books written, and they were correct in their time period. But, things have changed. Always check for updates. Check the internet. Take a look. I Forge Iron, Knife Dog. Oh, fuck, I'm forgetting one. I'm forgetting a big one, actually. There are a lot of forums. There are a lot of...
Backyard
Blacksmith
is the other good one.
Go and check. It's also a great way to get an anvil, a piece of railroad track. Good starter anvil. I got like 3 feet outside. I'm going to turn into some tooling. Get to know your local scrapyards. Make friends. Hey, if you can convince them to call you when they get like a bucket of files, you're golden. Like, be like, hey, we got a bucket of files. Bring me $20.
I have a friend who's a farrier up in Maine, and she brought me a bucket of files because they just use them once and they drop them. I got this bucket that I can barely lift. She just filled it with farrier rasps.
Oh yeah!
I'll be making farrier rasp knives till I'm 90.
Oh my god!
And they're great, and people actually love them. They love the pattern, depending on what you do with them. I've been making a lot of rasp knives, and people are people actually asking me now to make them rasp knives. So they're good. They hold an edge. They
really do,
and they're fun to make. So
they are.
farrier rasps if you can find them.
Yeah.
In fact, if you want some, I'll send you some.
I'll take a couple.
So I'm giving Christoph the beeswax, and I'll give you some farrier rasps.
Okay. I probably got some stuff you might be interested in too. We'll talk later. Also, one thing, I've got old scythe blades up here just as we close. Yes, they're carbon steel. Maybe you could straighten them into a knife, but they're already thin and ground. Like, those big honkers are thin. They're thin, very, very thin. I don't think you could. You might be able to cut pieces out.
Actually, cut pieces up and make Damascus out of them.
Oh yeah. But like, you're not going to be able to just forge them into a whole new thing. Not as they are, because they're already a tool and they're already in that shape, and there's not a lot of material to work with. But yeah, you could Damascus them. You could. Those are almost all some kind of good carbon steel. So.
Yeah.
All right. Have I hit time, or am I real close?
You're at it. You're 1 minute. So, anything to wrap up? Or?
Well, thank you all for coming. I wish I had a little more to show you, but I've sort of gone through everything that's hidden in the shop that I can remember. I feel like I got more around here, but yeah, that's being a blacksmith in the end. So.
You got some workshops downstairs.
Oh, we're not even going down there. We're not even going downstairs.
That's the finishing shop.
Well, there's a bunch of stuff.